welcome to episode 44 of The Comic Watchers Show. The Comic Watchers Show is brought to you by ComicWatch.com, your home for fan news and reviews written by fans for fans. My name is Matt, coming to you from Oklahoma City. I'll be your host this week because our usual host, Cody, is feeling sick and puny this week. Cody, we hope you're feeling better. We're also short John Jack, who has work obligations tonight, but fortunately I am joined by Nick and Brian.
Hello.
Hi.
So, without further ado, we've got some awesome books to talk about this week. But first, let's see what's going on in news this week. Brian, what do you have for us?
All right. So we actually have quite a bit going on. So Marvel apparently is planning a wedding. This wedding will take place maybe approximately in November. And the bride and groom, you ask? It's Black Cat and Spider-Man.
What?
Right. I don't know what happened there. I just know that was in the solicits that just came out. Interesting. So speaking of November, we head into the future with 2099 with 13 number ones, which range from Spider-Man to the Punisher to Conan. It seems like it's going to be a huge event for the year 2099. I was actually kind of a fan of the 2099 a couple years ago. Let's hope they live up to the hype that it is, or that it has been, the legacy, I guess. Star Wars ongoing series appears to be coming to an end this November with issue number 75. Basically what that means, no, Star Wars isn't going anywhere. It's just going to get a number one and a bunch of other side or spin-off tie-ins, as we call it in the biz.
New creative team.
Yeah, new creative team, new number one, because, we all want number ones. Okay, so Joker actor, they said when they first read it, of course, it was going to be a clickbait where it says, Joker star criticizes comic book fans, calling comic book fans or movies for kids, nerds, and grown men children. Yeah, that comes from Mark Moran, or Moran, I don't know how you want to say it. So he went on Conan, said his spiel. It's no big deal. You don't have to like it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're nerds or grown men children.
Oh, Mark Maron, the comedian?
Yeah, that dude.
Okay, I'm not sure. I misunderstood you. I thought you said the Joker actor, meaning Jared Leto.
Oh, no.
Very confused for a second there.
He's in Joker, but how the clickbait sites were saying it was the Joker star, which was Joaquin.
Well, Mark Maron's not very funny, so, forget that.
Right. Yeah. Mortal Kombat 11 is getting a little bit more of a comic book feel to it. It's going to have Spawn, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, and the Joker. Mortal Kombat is already out in stores. Former WWE superstar AJ Lee to co-write a new Glow comic book miniseries through IDW. Also, we'd like to give a shout out to Kieran Gillen. I can never pronounce his name. Is it Gillian?
Nope, just Gillen.
Gillen? Oh, I got it right. Okay. And Dan Moore, their Once and Future is going back to the printers for the 5th time. And we will have a preview on our website at comic-watch.com of issue number 2. That'll be out before this airs. It will actually be on our site. And that is it. That's all I have for news, guys.
Hold on, I got one more news item, pretty big news item, and that is Sony and Marvel's divorce over Spider-Man. That's a big news item.
That's what everybody's talking about.
What?
That's what everybody's talking about this week.
That's the big item of the week. Basically, it came down to profit sharing. The way that it works now, Sony, basically Marvel said we want more money, and Sony was like, no, you can have the same amount of money. And it was an intractability on both sides, and ultimately Sony took their toy and went home. So apparently this is the demise of Tom Holland's Spider-Man within the MCU. His future now is uncertain as the character. However, I think we can all be assured now that at some point we're going to get some kind of a Spider-Man and Venom movie, and especially since Venom made boatloads of money for some reason. And whether or not that Spider-Man is Tom Holland remains to be seen. However, eagle-eyed viewers, do not be shocked if we are in for a third Spider-Man reboot in less than 2 decades. So, that really sucks. Money is the root of all evil. I think that's actually it for news. Nick, did you have any more this, that, or the other?
I believe that's it. Sony issued a response where they technically laid the blame at Disney, but there's been a lot of people going after Sony for this. So there's a lot of back and forth rumors going around that Tom Holland unfollowed Sony on Twitter, and that they pulled up another video that he says he doesn't want to give up his ticket to the MCU. There's just a lot of rumors flying around with this controversy, so it's going to be ongoing. And
yeah.
It's going to keep developing, and I'm sure that when the dust settles, they know there's billions to be made by their unification or bringing these two companies together, and that's eventually what will get them back together.
So basically what's going to happen is Disney's just going to buy Sony.
I don't think Sony has enough IPs that are worth anything to make it worth their time to buy, but other than Spider-Man. But anyway, that is it for the news this week. So let's get into our reviews. First up, we have from Marvel, Ghost Spider #1. Written by Sean Ann McGuire, art by Takeshi Miyazawa, coloring by Ian Herring, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Ghost Spider #1 continues the story of Spider-Gwen, a.k.a. the 17th Spider-Woman, or something like that in Marvel. She's gotten a new name, and now she swings between her home dimension of Earth 65 and the in Marvel Universe proper 616, where she is going to college. And she's doing it because apparently her identity was outed in her home world, and she just wants a slice of normal life. Cue the typical, not typical, but cue the spider drama. We'll put it that way. I don't mean to sound like I'm down on the book by any means, but Brian, what did you think about it?
At first I kind of was like, oh, that's pretty much an unmemorable book because I didn't remember much of it. And then as you're describing it, I was like, oh yeah. And then she was jumping there, and then she ended up saving somebody as Spider-Ghost in this world that she's supposed to be incognito in. It's an okay book. I liked it, but I don't have anything really more to say on it. I probably will read #2 because I did find it interesting. I don't know. I think I've also been spoiled because we've had such great, for the show that we've reviewed, great discussions on for a while. So I kind of feel spoiled. So I expect everything to be on that level, and it wasn't. But it doesn't mean that it was a bad book or that I didn't like it. It was just okay. I mean, it was good.
Okay. Nick, what about you?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm kind of on that level. It was good, but they're hitting this note with these legacy characters. I think Marvel's done it a lot. If you're following Miles Morales, Ironheart, some of these other ones, the focus isn't necessarily on just punching bad guys. It's these heroes living in the Marvel universe and creating ties to the characters that we already know. So this one you see a lot of Peter Parker in the recent Ironheart, and even Miss Marvel, the Magnificent Miss Marvel, you see a lot of Tony Stark, and they build these connections with them, and I think that's important for what's happening with these legacy characters to ground them in the Marvel universe. But this one feels less enthused than the other characters. It's technically interesting that I like how she jumps to a different universe to try to seek a different life, and she's balancing between the two. But it's ultimately, it seems to lack the focus that something like Saladin Ahmed's Magnificent Miss Marvel has, that it wants to be, the driving focus of this issue is supposed to be the heart behind the character and the developments of this. It's supposed to be a character-driven book. but it's ultimately kind of lost in the concept of what it needs to be, and it loses its focus on Gwen at that point. It's supposed to be the emergence of this Ghost Spider character, and it's not really that. It feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be, but it knows it wants to focus on the drama of Gwen. So it tries to bring in these other elements, and to its credit, it looks good. There's a few panels in there that do look good. The artwork's solid, and I appreciate that, but it feels almost on the bottom tier of these legacy characters, that they don't quite have the oomph that like Miles Morales Spider-Man has, and I was a little disappointed to see that, because this character has a lot of hype around her, especially with the Spider-Verse stuff happening. It's not a far stretch to say this book might be a result of the popularity of that stuff. I think it happening or it being greenlit is easier when a movie like that exists that showcases her. So a lot of fans are going to come into this and just want to pour into this character, and they may not find what they're looking for in it, because it tries to do too much, never really succeeding at any one of those things. So that makes the book feel okay, but not great. And maybe it'll pick up, maybe it needs time to develop and gain that focus, but as the first issue, it didn't really hook me and make me want to just dive into it. Matt, what do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the word hype. It's been about 5 years now since the character debuted as quote-unquote Spider-Gwen during the initial Spider-Verse crossover. She super hot character then, kind of cooled off since then, and then bam, Into the Spider-Verse happened, and now the character's hot again. But, there's an internal problem with, and I was kind of joking about it, but really Marvel does have a good, I think, half dozen characters named Spider-Woman running around, so calling her it's Spider-Woman again, that's not going to help them. Spider-Gwen isn't really what the character is known for on the mass market now because of Into the Spider-Verse, so now we've got this new persona, Ghost Spider. So, we've got that. When she first started rolling solo, I read the first 5 or 6 issues. I found it enjoyable. She's an enjoyable character. I liked the remix on her home world of certain beloved characters. In fact, turning Matt Murdock into a badass assassin was really a stroke of genius, because with his power set, Matt Murdock could potentially be the deadliest man alive. Forget Bullseye. And that, it was a fun little book. However, I lost interest in it because I felt like ultimately it was being written for people a good 15 or 20 years younger than me. Not to say anything bad about the character. It's just suddenly, this isn't where I am anymore. I can't identify with this character. So, it goes on. So, now a few years have passed. The character's been around a while. She's got a new name. We need to find a way to bring her back. We need to find a way to integrate her into the Marvel Universe a little more properly, because otherwise she's stuck in her own little corner of the multiverse, and B, they'll have to constantly concoct storytelling contrivances in order to justify her showing up. So, okay, she's got this amulet or whatever now that can allow her to traverse between the two worlds, and that's fine. That's her thing, okay. But I feel like in moving her to, at least part-time, the proper Marvel Universe, the 616, we lose that little something special that made her multiversal world unique. And that's not to say that maybe in the long term that won't rectify itself. But, as Ghost Spider, what does she really do in this issue that couldn't be done by Peter Parker? She fights a big mutant rat and webs it up. She swings around. Yes, she does traverse dimensions. That's fine. But they kind of took away those elements that made her her. And I found myself finishing this issue and missed that a little bit. I mean, but what makes it weird, too, is that we've also got subplots going on back on Earth 65, including her father coming back to work after, I guess, he had a heart attack. But now they're going to have to really work double time to move her between the two worlds in order to keep these subplots fresh, and I don't know how that's going to work out without feeling ultimately cumbersome. So while the writers are well-intended, and yes, I think there's a little bit of editorial fiat here to move Ghost Spider into the 616, I feel like they've kind of got their work cut out for them in making this story feel, in the long term, like it's going to flow like a natural narrative, without feeling the burden of having to jump between worlds all the time. Other than that, yeah, I like the dynamic between her and Peter Parker. They kind of got a big brother, little sister thing going on that's really cool. I'm not super psyched to see the Jackal or / Miles Warren back. I didn't realize he was still around after the abysmal Return to the Clone Saga a couple years ago. That will not go named. So, yeah, I get to the end of this comic. The art's fine. The story's fine. The whole thing's fine. It's just not... It's fine. 6 out of 10 or whatever. Other than that, I don't have a real strong desire to read the second issue. That's just me, though. So, I think anyone else have any closing thoughts on Ghost Spider before we move on?
Well, I liked it a lot better than Matt apparently did.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'll definitely pick it up because it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine comic. And I nitpicked to death. I'm not going to lie to you. It didn't necessarily compel me to feel like, oh my god, I have to read number 2.
Right, yeah.
The issue is like what it's trying to be. Unfortunately, there's 3 or 4 other titles that are doing that, but a lot better right now. So if you're jumping into this one, there are other titles I could recommend that they're doing this on a whole other level. So, like you said, they have their work cut out for them.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so moving on, we are going to look at Canto, numbers 1, 2, and 3 from IDW Publishing. It is written, and forgive me if I butchered this last name, by David M. Boer. Art by Drew Zucker. Colors by Vittoria Astone. And letters by Deron Bennett. Canto tells the story of a world with slaves and slave masters. The slaves have no names. They have no lives. They are clockwork creations. They are built for the sole purpose of labor. And when they are done, or they burned out, they are thrown aside, discarded callously, and because there's always more workers. However, there is one. He has a name. His name is Canto. And he has someone he cares about. And he cares deeply for her, and she's injured. And he has to go on a quest to get her a new heart so that she lives. And Canto tells the tale of this plucky adventurer embarking in this magical world and to get a heart. It's great fantasy stuff. Brian, what did you think about it?
I love this book. Give me more of this book. Like, this was a fantastic book. I love that it had a fairy tale vibe. He had a heart, he had a name, and now he's on an adventure to get somebody else's heart or her original heart because they don't know what they did with the heart. There's all kinds of cool stuff in this book. Like, I recommend it. It's an awesome, cute story, but it's also kind of gut-wrenching, and it's an adventure. I just want to pick him up and hold Canto and play with him. Like, it's just awesome. Like, give me more of this. This is what comics are missing, and I think it's kind of one of a kind. Like, honestly, I've never really read IDW. Like, there's nothing that I've been interested in that I wanted to read on my own. So when I read this, I was kind of blown away. I was like, this is what IDW prints out. I'm going to pay more attention to it because this book is awesome. Like, I love the little guy. I love Canto. Nick, what do you what do you think?
Yeah, like I definitely agree. I mean, in a statement, this is kind of why I love comics. This book, from the first book, I could not put it down, and it's amazing. I think it's the fantasy behind it. I like the fairy tale aspect and the character work. It reminds me. I don't know if you ever saw the animated movie Nine. I think it had Elijah Wood voicing in it. It reminds me of that aesthetic almost, and I hate to drop this name of all things, but it feels like Ayn Rand's Anthem combined with the animated movie Nine. There's a sense of discovering individuality in this book that I think it draws its source of heart from, and it's beautiful. I think Canto is the only one that has a name who's really discovered that sense of self and that identity in this group of workers or slaves who have had their heart removed essentially since birth. And you don't find out who removed their heart or why until later on in the series. We're in issue 3 now, and the shrouded man behind it who kind of created this chain of enslavement, and these workers that Canto is a part of, they've gotten caught up in something that's just bigger than them. So all of this is going on, and Canto really only cares about saving the one that he loved, that her heart is damaged, and she needs a new one. So this discovery sets something up that turns out to be much bigger than he imagined. And I think it's something that places this hero in a place that he doesn't expect, but he's up to the challenge. There's a page in issue 2, I think, where he says he's coming up against the beasts. I believe they're Morlax of the world around them, and he summons the courage to fight them by thinking of the knight who rescues the princess in the tallest tower at the tallest peak of the mountain. And he summons that courage through that night and says his fears were only dreams of everything that could be. And he charges at them, and you see the visualization of the knight above him, and it's just powerful storytelling. And it's a great example of what this book is accomplishing, and it's just beautiful. I can't say enough praise on it. The exploration of a strange sense of humanity and, like I said, individuality that comes from this group, that I didn't see coming. Canto feels like it's just supposed to be this adventure fantasy, and then you get into it and it's so much more. There's so much heart in it because it's a series predicated on heart. So ultimately it had a lot to live up to because this concept required a fundamental emotion underlying every page. And 3 issues in now, it hasn't failed to live up to that at all. Like I said, I couldn't put it down. So it's interesting that we talk about this book up against something like Ghost Spider, because it's kind of a duality in the industry right now that we see, that Marvel is kind of chugging along doing books that are just fine, that there are fans that are probably going to pick it up. And then you have publishers like IDW who are putting out books like Canto that are brilliant, that you really shouldn't be missing. But the spectacle of seeing Ghost Spider on the shelves when you know there's a movie back there, it makes people think that's a legitimate character, and that's what I need to pick up. When really the story in Canto is something that will have everybody talking. It's going to hook you and make you want to keep reading. So it's a strange trend in the industry to see it going on right now. But it's a great choice that I think that we chose to talk about this book, because it's one that needs the attention, and it's so well deserving. It's just gorgeous. The artwork is amazing. The story is everything you want it to be. I can't speak highly enough of it. This might be a 10 out of 10 book. It's up there. Matt, what do you think?
Well, I don't think I can say much more that you said than what you already have said, but one thing I particularly do want to hit on is this comic has so much heart. I mean, my God, it's such not just a labor of love, but you just fall in love with these characters and this world almost from page 1. The character of Canto himself kind of reminds me of if somebody took a Super Nintendo game and turned it into a Pixar movie. And it's just great. Like, there's nothing about this comic that doesn't work. It's deceptively simple, but there's emotional complexities that are just head and shoulders above so much more that can be found on the shelf today. Man, the art is gorgeous. The writing is heartfelt without being sappy. God, it's just impossible not to root for Canto in his quest. It's so genuine and, again, heartfelt. He's got this ridiculously goofy beast that follows him everywhere. That's like a big monster dog. Nick, what was it called again?
I believe it's the Morlax.
Morlax, yeah. These creatures are presented as these ultimate predators at the beginning, and yeah, they're these big horrible monsters, rawr. And then here comes this one with this big sloppy tongue and goofy grin on its face, and all he wants to do is please his master, like a big doggy. And the shrouded man, the purple squid, the art, the coloring, my God, the creative team here is really creating something special. And to echo what you were saying, Nick, more people need to be paying attention to books like this. I mean, yes, the industry thrives on the big two, and that's an immutable fact at this point. But there are so many good, under the radar books like this that just aren't getting the attention that they deserve. I mean, we all work for a comic site, and I never heard of this book until you guys were suggesting it to review on the book this weekend. Thank you for doing so, because I love it. I cannot wait to see where this story goes, and I hope that it's ultimately successful enough that we get more Canto in the future. Guys, do you have any final thoughts on this book?
I do. The only thing I can say is I do think that it may be better read in trade or all together. Because I don't know, like I was thinking of it, I'm not sure if at the end of each I want to say issue, that there was enough of a cliffhanger that would make me remember it in the next time or keep an eye on it. But I loved it. Like, I mean, that doesn't take anything away from it, but I think I enjoyed it 10 times more that I read it all together instead of trying to remember what happened last time, because it is kind of a dense a book, but or a simple kind of book, but it's still beautiful, and I'm so glad that we got to review it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I think that's a fair point, because probably all three of us consumed it, issue 1 through 3 in one sitting. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people haven't had that luxury, I guess. So that is probably a fair point. But I think just to give more credit to the artwork, because the story is everything you want it to be, like I said. But the artwork from these characters like Canto, there's not a lot of room for expression. And what they get out of just his eyes is almost unreal. You get so much emotion and expression out of just the eyes that it's kind of beautiful to see. This artist knows what they're doing, and just almost every layer has such great execution. The story, the artwork, the colors, it's just every single thing is firing on all cylinders. It's amazing.
Most definitely. And you know what? Props to IDW, because they've been around for 20 years, which is impressive in and of itself for an indie company, and especially as quick as they come and go these days. I mean, there's a ton of them, don't get me wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of here today, gone tomorrow books. Or companies out there, but I can remember, and it wasn't that long ago, that IDW's bread and butter was licensed comics. And there's nothing wrong with licensed comics, but you're almost certainly not gonna get something on the level of Canto out of a licensed property. Hard, cold truth. So, okay, I guess that is it for our reviews this week. So let's move into our final segment. What have you been reading, and what are you looking forward to? B, what you got?
So I'm on a Captain America kick right now. So I read Captain America: The Chosen. I definitely would recommend it. It's not really necessarily a Captain America story as much as we follow an Afghanistan or a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan, and I think Corporal Jimmy, I forgot his last name, and his adventure to save some of his fellow soldiers in his platoon. Some stuff happened. Captain America is there, but is he really there? It's just a telling story. And then Captain America is not doing so well himself either. He's maybe seeing his last days and just kind of watching how two lives impact one another. And who knows, maybe there's a little Captain America in all of us. I would strongly recommend this book. It has beautiful art. The book itself keeps you wondering what's going on, guessing. And then after I finished that book, I started reading Captain America by Rob Liefeld, his little run that from the 90s.
That's quite a study in contrast, my friend.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I actually like the art, his artwork. His storytelling is interesting. I think I'm only in issue 3, so I'll have to come back to you guys next week and let you know how the rest of his run goes.
To that.
Yeah.
What you looking forward to?
I didn't actually look because I was so excited to talk about Captain America that I forgot to see what was coming up. Actually, somebody else go, and then once I look it up, I'll interrupt somebody rudely and
fair enough.
This is what I'm looking for.
Nick, take it away.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you've been following along, I've been continuing the Valiant binge, and so it continues with Bloodshot Reborn. This is Jeff Lemire's series, came out in I think 2015 after his 2014 The Valiant debut, and this follows up after the previous Bloodshot run. I'm gonna butcher the name, I'm sorry. I believe it's Dwayne Swierczynski. And
you got it right.
Cool. So it follows that run where you see Bloodshot kind of essentially get reborn. He becomes this new man. Kay is out of the picture now, and he's really struggling. He's in this depressive state. He's drinking, just ignoring everything. And I'm about halfway through volume 1 of Reborn, and this is a totally new direction for Bloodshot. So it feels like I'm a big fan of Jeff Lemire's stuff, and I know in this show they've talked about how slow he is and stuff like that, but I think he's got a connection with Bloodshot where it's pretty fast paced. I think he suits the character well. And I believe it's Bloodsquirt, his bloody buddy that comes up in this, is just so ridiculous, but also it's kind of cool to see in the series, like up against this super dark, depressive Bloodshot that's already this hyper masculine character, and to see some character like this come in is pretty fun. So I'm excited to see where it goes, and this is all part of a character study as to what I'm looking forward to in the new Bloodshot series that's supposed to drop on September 25th. And you can find a new interview coming really soon at comicwatch.com with the writer Tim Seeley. I recently got a chance to talk to him, and some really cool stuff happening in that series. So it's got me really excited. Just the character of Bloodshot has so much hype around him right now with the new movie, the mini that ended, this new ongoing series. Valiant's making their push. And when I was talking to Tim Seeley, he echoed the sentiment that Valiant knows this is going on too. They're well aware that this is their shot, and they're putting a lot of faith behind Bloodshot as a character to make this publisher known and to bring these characters to the forefront. So it's interesting to see what they're doing with him, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. But until then, I'm going back and catching up on things that I've missed. So Bloodshot Reborn it is right now, and after that, I believe it's Bloodshot Salvation, and Jeff Lemire kind of continues with these other minis until we get to Tim Seeley's new run. So that's what I'm excited for, and you definitely got to check out more Valiant. Matt?
So what you're saying is that Bloodshot is, or that Bloodshot is them taking their shot. They're Bloodshot, as it were.
Oh, so perfect.
I'm sorry, I had to. I'm sorry.
It's too good.
It was there. So I have been diving a little bit into early to mid 70s Legion of Superheroes, which is technically Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. It's very much a product of its time. Very much Bronze Age DC, lots of one and dones. There's a lack of maturity in the writing just because I don't think they quite knew yet how to bring the Legion into its own outside of a more Silver Agey context. But it's endearing. And if you like, if you have an affinity for the older styles of writing, and if you like these characters, I mean, it's harmless fun. And the reason, however, I was doing that is because I am looking very forward to Superman number 14 this coming week, which is formally reintroducing the Legion of Superheroes back into the DC universe for the first time again. But first time post-Rebirth, for sure. They've been MIA for quite a while now. I love this team. I love these characters. I generally love Brian Michael Bendis writing. I cannot wait to see what he does with this property. I'm hoping it is more leaning towards his Avengers rather than his Guardians of the Galaxy. And in terms of that, he takes his time and lays things out. If that's the case with this big sprawling cast and this big canvas he has to work on, his Legion should be excellent. Fingers crossed. So that's what I'm looking forward to this week. B, did you figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, Batman Superman #1.
Okay. Funny you should bring that up. I think we're talking about reviewing that and perhaps Spawn number 300. Big anniversary issue next week. But that's next week. So that is it for our show this week. Thank you for listening to the Comic Watchers. Even though we were 2 men short, I think we still pulled off an awesome show. Thank you guys for joining me this week. And you can follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, basically anywhere where finer podcasts are to be found. And
hey, did we figure out Facebook, YouTube, or Facebook video?
We did.
Oh,
now you can catch our videos pretty much live on Facebook right on our page, right when you open it up.
Okay, awesome. This is something I didn't know. So without further ado, that is the end for the week. Brian.
Toodaloos.